Damon Fordham, professor of history at Virginia College in Charleston, South Carolina, as well as a local author and historian. Now, most people's knowledge of the slavery era in the United States tends to be pretty limited. For example, most people do not know that from 1624 till 1827, that slavery existed in the northern United States. Some people will say, well, wait a minute, I didn't know that. How come I was never told that? Well, for one thing, you have to do some really serious independent reading to know these things. It's not general knowledge. Secondly, many people will be shocked to know that it was due to this lady, who was born in slavery under the name known as Mom Bet through much of her early life, born in 1744, who was the main reason why slavery did not exist in the North for a long period of time up to the end of slavery in the United States. She was one of the main reasons that slavery stopped in the North. Okay, so you may ask, how did this happen? It's a very interesting story. As I mentioned before, Mom Bet was born in 1744 in Massachusetts, and she was enslaved by Judge John Ashley and his wife Hannah. Now, his wife Hannah was a real piece of work. I mean, this lady was just simply no joke. She was, quite frankly, very vicious to Mom Bet. Mom Bet's husband, incidentally, died in the American Revolution. He was killed fighting for America during the Battle of Independence, which plays a very major role in our story. But one of the interesting things that happened was that Hannah Ashley was once angry at Mom Bet's sister. She accused her of stealing something and was about to take a poker from the fireplace and beat her with it. But Mom Bet said, "Oh no, that dog's not going to hunt." And she got right in the way between Hannah Ashley and her sister, and the poker came down on her, BAM! And so, for a long time afterwards, she had a very nasty scar. And to show you what type of lady Mom Bet was, whenever visitors to the Ashley household would see that nasty scar, they would say, "Mom Bet, how did that happen?" And Mom Bet would look directly at Hannah Ashley and say, "Ask Madam." It's not recorded what Hannah Ashley did when she did that, but it's safe to say that she didn't like it. Well, in either case, though, around the time of the American Revolution, there was talk filled in the streets of Massachusetts. People were saying things like, "Give me liberty," or "Give me death." "All men are created equal, and we should have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness," and so forth. All of the talk that surrounded the American Revolution and America's desire to be free from the rule of the British. Well, guess what? The slaves heard this kind of talk too, and so did Mom Bet. And Mom Bet said, "Wait a minute now, hold it. All men are created equal, and we should be free from the British, and we should have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Whoa, hold up now." So she went to a well-known lawyer by the name of Theodore Sedgwick. And she went to him and said, "Lawyer Sedgwick, now hold on now. I've been hearing people talk about this stuff, about the Declaration of Independence and all of this, and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and all men being created equal. Wait a minute, aren't I an American too? Doesn't this also apply to me?" And Theodore Sedgwick said, "Well, Mom Bet, I don't see why it shouldn't." So she took the case to court, suing Judge John and Hannah Ashley for her freedom. And in the early 1780s, guess what? She won. And two things happened as a result of her freedom. One was that now that she was a free human being, she announced that she would no longer be known as Mom Bet, but she was now known as Miss Elizabeth Freeman. That's right, to reflect her new status as a free human being. And then the state of Massachusetts then ruled that, since the court ruled in Elizabeth Freeman's favor, that slavery would soon be outlawed in the state of Massachusetts. And after it was outlawed in the state of Massachusetts, state by state above the Mason-Dixon line in the northern United States, outlawed slavery until finally New York was the last to do so in 1827. Yeah. All because of Elizabeth Freeman. So wait a minute. How come, some of you may ask, we don't know that story? And wait, so how did you find this out? Well, here's a couple of things that happened. You see, Elizabeth Freeman, after she was freed from the Ashleys, she went to work as a servant for Judge Theodore Sedgwick and his family. And there was a little girl in that family by the name of Catherine Maria Sedgwick. And when she was a little girl, she asked Elizabeth Freeman what it was like to be a slave. And she said that this was her reply. Anytime I was a slave, if 1 minute's freedom had been offered to me, and I had been told that I must die at the end of that minute, I would have taken that minute just to stand for 1 minute on God's earth as a free woman. So I would. Says a lot, right? Well, after Catherine heard all of this stuff, Miss Freeman saved her money from the Sedgwicks and bought her own house where she lived on her own until her death in 1829. And in 1853, Catherine wrote down the story of the lady who had helped raise her as a child, the story of Elizabeth Freeman, and she told it in 1853 to Brittany's magazine. And that story was repeated in a number of journals over the years. And very recently, John Oliver Horton included it in his book, Slavery in the Making of America, and it also appears in the documentary of that same name, which I strongly recommend to show to students in your classrooms. So it's interesting to think, though, that a result of this lady, Elizabeth Freeman, is the reason why slavery ended in the North. And guess what? Elizabeth Freeman, upon hearing about the Declaration of Independence and going to Judge Sedgwick and all of that, she had all the sense to do that, and she never learned to read or write. Ladies and gentlemen, where there is a will, there is a way. This is Damon Fordham.